Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Spring Hillel College Fair. Thanks so much for joining us. We are very excited in a few minutes to be offering this conversation with both Adam Lehman and Lisa Taylor. But first of all, my name is Zach Epstein. I'm a senior at UT Austin with Texas Hillel, and I'm the co-chair of the Hillel International Student Cabinet. The cabinet's made up of Jewish students who are leaders across different campuses, from the US to Brazil to Israel and more, all representing diverse Jewish backgrounds and experiences. And the cabinet serves as really the student advisory body to the Hillel movement, as well as providing opportunities for college students from around the world to connect with one another. And at Texas Hillel, I've served in a variety of roles, from the student executive cabinet, as a campus engagement intern, ordering the all-important study snacks, and perhaps most importantly, as captain of some very winning and some very losing Hillel basketball teams. So we have a great conversation planned for you today. We'll have the opportunity to hear from Hillel International's president and CEO, Adam Lehman, as well as Lisa Taylor, who is the chief of staff for NYU Global Programs and University Life. We'll be exploring the various plans being discussed and in place for campuses this upcoming fall, as well as applications, admissions, and enrollments. Without further ado, let's get on and I will introduce them. So first, I'm pleased to introduce Adam Lehman, Hillel International's CEO and president. Adam was appointed CEO in January 2020, and prior to his appointment, he served as Hillel International's COO for 4 years. Adam brings to Hillel 2 decades of experience developing and growing new technology, media, and marketing ventures as a senior vice president and group COO at AOL, president and COO of 2 software and data analytics companies, founder of early stage investment company Rockridge Ventures, and entrepreneur in residence at the University of Maryland Smith School of Business. And Adam is not just the president and CEO of Hillel, he's also a proud parent of 2 current college students. His older daughter, Dahlia, is a senior at Washington University in St. Louis, and his younger daughter, Jessica, is a sophomore at Tulane University. He and his family reside in Potomac, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. We are equally excited to welcome Lisa Taylor, Chief of Staff for Global Programs and University Life at New York University. For 18 years, NYU has been Lisa's professional home. Lisa came to NYU in 2003, serving NYU's Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service in a number of student-facing capacities, including directing and providing leadership for graduate students' extracurricular and post-academic experiences. From NYU Wagner, Lisa moved to the United Arab Emirates, where she furthered NYU Abu Dhabi's presence locally and throughout the region, directing recruitment and outreach strategy in the Middle East and North Africa, and NYU Abu Dhabi's highly competitive candidate selection process. After returning to New York, Lisa oversaw the coordination of global admissions activity, leading the teams responsible for NYU's Abu Dhabi and Shanghai campuses, as well as international admissions for New York. In 2015, Lisa became the Chief of Staff for Global Programs and University Life in NYU's Office of the Provost. In this role, Lisa partners with the President's Office and senior university leadership to advance strategic programs and initiatives within the global programs and student affairs spaces, as well as on large-scale, cross-cutting, university-wide priorities and projects. Most recently, this has meant focusing on managing the university's response to the COVID-19 pandemic as it relates to the student experience. Please private chat any questions to questions Jamie Schiffman, who is one of our listed hosts. When you private chat those questions, they will be considered for the Q&A. Thanks again for joining, and Adam, take it away.
Thank you so much, Zach. And boy, I wish I could claim that Zach's tremendous capabilities are solely a function of his involvement at Hillel. I'll take 90% of the credit. We will. I think he probably came to campus with other great things. But I will say, it gives me and us as an organization so much joy to be able to support students who develop their student leadership skills, much like Zach has done, during his time in Austin. It's also such a delight to be in conversation with Lisa, who you heard from Lisa's background, has a really diverse array of experience that is of interest. We could probably talk for hours. We won't. We will focus this conversation so that everyone who's joined us today can get a better sense for what college life is like today in this very unusual COVID moment, and even more importantly, what it will likely entail as we move forward. So, Lisa, just as a starter question, it would be great to hear your reflections on what student life and student experience is like in this moment, since you've done so much to construct that. And then, as importantly for this group, what you're expecting for the fall.
Thanks, Adam, and thank you, Zach, for that lovely introduction. Thank you for inviting me to be included in this event. And I'm very excited to be speaking to all you parents and students out there. I think there is a special place for individuals such as yourselves going through this process at this time. This is pretty unique. I actually think it's actually in a way to your advantage that you have this completely different experience that's going to draw a distinction in your application processes or other conversations. So I think it's actually the silver lining to some of this is that you have such a unique experience behind you. Thank you so much for that question. It's been, as I think for all of us, I think it's really important to acknowledge the very personal, individual aspect to this global pandemic. Just like you students and parents out there, us university administrators and faculty members have been going through the same things, asking those same questions, being worried about those same situations. We've worked incredibly hard. I have to say, I think we have worked much, much harder this year. Not that we don't usually work pretty hard in terms of trying to create an experience for students during a pretty constrained year that really reflects what we hope each individual gets out of their time here at university. For NYU, we've been actually really, really fortunate. I think we may have spent a huge amount of times. We actually opened in person and stayed in person all through the year itself. Much of our offerings are in fact also remote offerings, but there are classes that have students in them and haven't had them since the fall. We've had students on campus since the fall. We opened with over 6,000 students in housing. And a lot of that is because we all took it upon ourselves as a collective to commit ourselves to supporting our public health protocols and other activities. So it's been an incredible experience. I have to give students credit every single moment of their ability to be responsible and reflective of the things we ask them to do. And they are 100% one of the main reasons that we're here still today. I'm just so proud of everyone in this year. It's been an incredible year. And for fall, for NYU specifically, we are planning to be, 100% in person. Things are looking really positive. Obviously, anything can change. I think we all pay attention to the news in a pretty comprehensive way, watching, those vaccine numbers go up, fingers crossed, as well as hopefully other advantages and discoveries on the horizon. But our plan is, and as President Hamilton actually recently communicated to students and to parents, about fall, is that we will be in person. And so we anticipate, 100% academic experience, I hope, and as well as the extracurricular one as well. So that is our plan. Obviously, we will continue. We are always looking at the numbers. We are always evaluating what's going on and being responsive and changing in the moment. And that's what I expect all universities are doing. We're really watching and thinking, what is the best course of action for the students to keep them safe and healthy? That has really been the primary consideration for the last year and will be in the future.
Yeah, well, thanks for the answer. And the approach certainly that NYU is taking is consistent with much of what I've seen both as a parent and in my Hillel capacity. I also want to underscore something you shared, Lisa. What has made things work to the extent things have worked this year has been a partnership between administrations, faculty, and students, and family members, and parents. It has taken a really complicated village to get through, and thank God, for the most part, we are getting through. You mentioned the fact that there have been remote offerings, and there will certainly probably still be remote offerings. Can you share anything about how NYU is looking at hybrid, maybe just starting with the academic context? Do you anticipate that there will be a mix of online and in-person instruction next year?
So for NYU, obviously, like I mentioned, we're planning for 100% in person, but I think that there is still this concern that exists particularly in our context, which is so many of our students are not actually from the United States and would have to come here. And it's not 100% clear. And I think it will continue obviously to evolve over the summer, but we will see what that sort of travel and visa and immigration system sort of looks like as we keep going. But those students like I mentioned this past year, NYU is a highly global university. I think probably most of the individuals on this call know that. Global is really part of our, one of our most distinguishing characteristics, and it's incredibly important to us to have students who sort of come out of NYU with this global context. And that means we not only have these global campuses that students study away at, but the degree granting campuses of NYU, Abu Dhabi, and Shanghai. We also have these global campuses that are where we have students, we call it study away, because not study abroad doesn't mean everything for everybody else, right? And knowing that we had those locations, we actually leveraged those in the situation this last year and inverted essentially study away to something called Go Local. So if you were close to those campuses, you could in fact take classes if sort of the public health landscape allowed it locally in those locations. So like, for example, NYU Shanghai, we have a number of students who are from China and could not make it here, but they were able to take classes in China itself, in Shanghai, on the NYU Shanghai campus. And so there were other instances where there might be virtual experiences for students who are closer to the other global locations and taking courses online that way as well, because time zones are a pretty big consideration when you have students all over the world. You can't just have an 8 a.m. class in New York and make that work for someone who's in Australia. And so we had to take advantage of that global footprint to make that work for students. So our plan is to continue with in-person engagement in the fall, but I would not be surprised that there might be some, depending on the immigration situation, what that might look like. But I also would say that faculty are really, it's just as much of a time and investment to do things on a virtual platform as well as in person. And so doing those two things simultaneously will also be a factor in terms of what we're going to be able to offer in the fall.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And just to respond to a few of the questions that have come in, this college fair is absolutely not just for seniors. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what the experience is likely to be for high school seniors who enter university life in the fall, but we'll also be speaking to considerations for high school juniors or even sophomores. So we will get to that. And this is not just about NYU, but we wanted to take advantage of Lisa's unique expertise and perspective. And I'll comment more broadly on some of these questions as we go through. And again, consistent with Lisa's answer, we're seeing most campuses speaking to the fact that they will be trying to be as much in person in the fall as they can. One interesting trend that I'm seeing is consideration of using online instruction, even with campuses who are with all the students on campus, for certain courses that may work well at a large group survey level, like a 300-person, introductory science or other course. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Along the same lines, Lisa, are you seeing or thinking about the way that online experience may continue to play a role outside of the classroom?
Yes, I think this is very much a silver lining, again, of the COVID experience, is that we all had to pivot to a completely virtual situation for at least for the extracurricular. In particular, I'm speaking about NYU's, and our in-person engagement was focused solely on the academic side. Like I mentioned, we did host students in the dorm rooms themselves, but we wanted to make sure that health and safety led all of our activities, and so therefore all of our services and all of our events went virtual in the student affairs space. And we found that some of those services actually will likely continue in that form going forward into the fall semester, because it served the students best. It wasn't about, it's not about our own sort of institutional convenience, but rather, for example, students are really, the ability to engage virtually with individuals in our career center, for example, is a really big convenience for some students. The ability to engage in some of our telemedicine offerings is a really big convenience for students. So wherever possible, we're going to be examining some of those decisions we had to make because of COVID and making strategic decisions about offering those continue forward if that is the best way to serve students. And I would assume that every other institution is having those same conversations. how did we get through this year? What was the most successful things that we actually helped the student experience, and what can we continue on in the future?
Yeah, for sure. And as we look at the theme of Jewish life on campus, we're going through that exact same set of questions and considerations. And while I like to say we're a countercultural organization and that we really prioritize in-person relationship building and community building, I expect that we will continue to have a robust complement of online opportunities. So, for example, 3 Shabbats will be in person and a 4th Shabbat will be hybrid. It'll be in person, but also online, because there's certain students who they want to hang out and do it in their, in their dorm room or with their friends. And, just as an example of how those experiences can get blended, or do a volunteerism activity or relationship building activity with 10 other campuses around the world, right? That is something you can do online that, you can't so easily do otherwise. One other question specific to, again, the families of and high school seniors, as students are preparing for arrival in the fall, any wisdom or advice on how they should go about preparing this summer?
So yes, I mean, here's what I'll say. Like the College Board actually has a really great sort of college checklist, so everyone should certainly look at that. It just gives like a broader set of like strategies and things you want to pay attention. I will say that this is probably to the students' chagrin, but universities love sending emails. So there's going to be a lot of email communication over the next few months, and many of those emails will probably be long and may have requirements in it that could be easy to miss. So I'd really encourage you to watch your email, check it frequently, and then track those requirements that you're supposed to be fulfilling over the summer in anticipation of arrival, because if you miss it the first time, it's going to be more work to actually fix it if you just if you're able to identify it and follow it in advance. On that College Board sort of summer before college checklist, it has things that I think are pretty obvious, right? You're going to speak to your academic advisor prior to enrolling in classes. I would highly encourage you to do a lot of that research before those conversations, so you can think about, you can use that time pretty efficiently, that what are the best classes that you can apply for, or you can register for at the time that you're allowed. Some individuals might have opportunities to pursue internship or other professional experiences. Obviously, this is something you would do pre-COVID, post-COVID, whatever you do. Those experiences look a little different that year. You're going to more likely find virtual internship experiences. I also want to note that I said professional experiences, because not a volunteer experience can count as a professional experience. So I think I would encourage you to think expansively about the opportunities that you have in your neighborhoods, in your towns and cities, of ways that you can get involved and build a resume or build skills that you think that might be helpful before you leave and go to college, and then you can use that in the next conversation. I might also, if you don't feel like an internship is a good idea or not possible, I would also encourage you to engage in something called informational interviewing. You may all have probably heard this in your high schools, but it's essentially talking to professionals who have jobs that you might be really interested in. Often the journey to those jobs can be revealing to you as an individual. It's a very low sort of stress engagement with someone on a professional, and you may actually create a little bit of a network for yourself as you look for professional opportunities in the futures. But informational interviews are a great way to sort of understand what are those key moments or key decisions they made that might be noticeable to someone who's had this conversation, and that you might learn something about as you go into the work world as well. The other thing I would say in this sort of still virtual world, and I will stop after this, you want to really try to get ahead of it, and you want to try to maybe make some connections before you even arrive. So I would encourage you to engage with virtually, I know it maybe sounds like, oh, another virtual thing, but connecting with peers before you arrive, then you actually have a little bit of a network before you even step foot on campus. I would also encourage you, if there's a faculty member that you're really interested in taking a class, or that you want a future getting to know, reaching out to them during the summer, or reaching out to them and saying, I'm going to take your class, or I'm interested in your class. This is my background. That's okay too. I think trying to create networks before you even land is not a bad idea. But I would also tell you, it's still your last summer before college. So don't make yourself more stressed than you probably already are. You'll have plenty of opportunities to fill fill your schedule once you arrive. These are just a few things that you could do, but definitely watch your email because we like to communicate on email.
Yeah, right. And, I know as a parent and, as an administrator, students are really maybe not as much on email as parents, but as parents, we really do need to watch it like a hawk. I want to pick up on your comment too about starting to build that network. And this is something students who are tuned in can engage with, but to your point, they got lots of other things going on. Parents can be involved with this too. You can build a network through Hillel as well. Like Hillel professionals love to hear from students or families before a student is arriving to be able to share what's going to be happening in the fall at a Hillel or otherwise on campus. I mean, we really do pride ourselves on, being a gateway to so many things that are happening across campus. So, for those who are participating today, by all means, and I'll talk about this in the program this evening, for parents, take advantage of tapping into that Hillel professional early. And, that can be a way to get introduced to other students. It can be a way to understand what programs, may be available. Shifting to juniors or even sophomores in high school or their families on the call, like as someone's thinking about college search coming through this COVID period, is there advice you would offer to them?
Yeah, as someone who spoke to high school students prior to applying to NYU Abu Dhabi or Shanghai for many years, there was a lot of things I said to them still hold true, which is many people apply to college. A lot of applications come in. For example, NYU had over 100,000 this year. That's a lot of applications to read through. So it's never a bad thing to start early in terms of establishing yourself as an individual when those people visit your schools or host virtual recruitment opportunities. Showing up and letting them know that you're interested in their program and letting them know early is really can be really helpful. So when your application does in fact get submitted, you'll be not just a number, you'll be a name associated with an individual. I would encourage you to, same way this is the networking conversation, right? Which get to know people, engage with them intelligently on their school, do your research. If there's a particular faculty member that you're interested in, you might want to get in touch with them because of the class that they're offering or a class that they have offered. It's establishing yourself as a person that's committed to that institution going forward. And so that's always really interesting to admissions individuals. I would also say authenticity is one of those things that we always try to find in applications. So as you're writing your college essay, I really would encourage you to try to find your authentic voice in writing. You could tell when students felt were really speaking from their heart as opposed to choosing a story that they thought would work well in an admissions context. So I would really highly encourage you to think, okay, as I start building the things I'm going to present in my applications going forward, what are key life experiences or stories that I can tell that are truly about me as an individual, and that the voice that I would share that information in would come across as someone that actually is reflective of me as a person. You could always, I loved finding those essays when I would read applications. I was like, oh, this student is amazing. And when you read thousands of applications, when those essays sort of shine through, it's a really special moment. So I would encourage you to think about that as well.
That's great. And, again, from a Jewish life perspective, I'd really encourage people to take advantage, tell your friends and relatives in terms of opportunities like this virtual college fair. It is one of the learnings that I think we'll all have coming out of the pandemic, which is, there are opportunities where doing something virtually may have as much value. And when you think about I think as a parent about how wide the filter was at the beginning to even figure out with, your child where they're interested, where they may be considering, it can be overwhelming. So using, resources and tools like this that don't require the time or financial investment to get to campus, I think can be a real benefit. One other theme, maybe we have a couple more questions here. Wellness has been a big issue for students. For all people in the context of this really difficult stretch, but students no exception. And I think in some cases, students in particular who are already struggling in many cases with mental wellness challenges or other wellness challenges. Any thoughts? And this could be for incoming students or just high school students as they think about that longer transition that they might consider in terms of preparing for the college experience, maybe having those wellness resources in place, to make the college transition easier.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole range of things that universities are focusing on with regard to student wellness, like you mentioned. What I would suggest, if for those of you who have, who are going away from maybe where you're close to home, you might have a therapist or some other individual that is something that you're really would like to continue to. I would sort of engage and find out what that's going to look like post transition once fall rolls around. Will you need to keep your insurance? Do you have to go on the student insurance project? Do you have to follow the university's insurance? Like, do you have to, or do you stay on your parents' insurance? There's all these like sort of questions that you would have to think about from like a process point of view. So I would want you to try to prepare for those questions before you'd actually make the transition. The other thing I would say is self-care is really important, right? So being able to take your own temperature and respond to that in the moment. So that's incredibly important during the summer and as you go into your first year, or even continue on in your college experience. And so wherever you can pick up strategies like either for NYU specifically, we have things like group therapy opportunities, not just individual therapy, although that's obviously offered. There's often comfort in having a peer group that is going through the same sort of circumstances that you are. And so you can find strength in those processes. So I'd go and see if there are group therapies or groups that are available for whatever concern you might have. And also I would say being able to lean on support structures that you already have in place, like your family members or others, that also can be incredibly helpful to students going through a difficult moment. The pandemic is not, new. People were stressed before the pandemic, but it has sort of brought that to a slightly different cadence than it has in the past. And so we're especially attuned to student wellness and trying to reinforce those messages of care and support. So
that's terrific. Yeah, and so many of our university partners have invested in making sure wellness is a priority. And I know at Hillel, we have made sure to train all of our professionals so they can be a resource, maybe not a clinical resource, but definitely a support resource. And the communities that students become a part of, including a Jewish community, can be really prophylactic or supportive from a wellness point of view. So we're going to run out of time. I feel like we could do a dedicated session just on the global aspects of the NYU program because it is so unique. Is there anything you can share about whether Abu Dhabi or Tel Aviv, where you have presence there, just so people get a sense for what the wide world of NYU entails?
We have, 12, hang on one second, I'm sorry. It's the pandemic. We're all in each other's lives in this whole other way. So I'm sorry about that. Okay. So we're planning to be, so NYU has a huge global presence. Like I mentioned, we have campuses, sort of study away campuses in Buenos Aires. We have a location in Los Angeles. We have DC. We have locations all over Europe, Paris, London, Tel Aviv, as well as other locations. A lot of that is a little bit up for grabs, depending, like I mentioned, about like visa and sort of the sort of immigration and other restrictions that might be in place and still in place once fall rolls around. But we are planning for resumption of normal study away opportunities for students. In fact, we're taking those applications right now. And so once those variables are clear, that will be clearer to students as well. I mean, NYU Tel Aviv, I don't know if people are interested in that. It's a wonderful program led by Dr. Benny Harry, who's a professor here at NYU, and he is an incredible advocate for students. He is just it's a wonderful place to go. I actually had the opportunity in November of 2019 to actually go to the NYU Tel Aviv campus and walk around Tel Aviv. It has a huge, in particular, we have all of our global sites and campuses have really interesting backgrounds and sort of areas of expertise. In Tel Aviv in particular, they're focused on sort of the science and business entrepreneurship side, which is a big piece of what's going on in Israel right now, in addition to sort of the regular academic offerings that we would provide students at a global site. For NYU Global, like I mentioned, Global Way, I love global study. That is one of the most attractive for me as an administrator options for NYU and students. It gives students a leg up in a way that not many other places can, and treats them to be a sort of a global citizen differently than those that you might not study away. And we say study away, like I mentioned, because it's not always abroad, right? We have a location in LA, we have a location in DC. So it's a really interesting sort of set of opportunities for students to engage in. And NYU would always encourage students to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. The perspective has been helpful. It's a terrific way for us to kick off this virtual college fair. I encourage everyone who is tuned in for this to look out for the other opportunities. I'll be doing a parents only program this evening where we'll go even deeper in terms of Jewish life on campus issues and opportunities. And there are going to be wonderful chances to meet with Hillel professionals and student leaders at specific campuses that are of interest. But again, thank you so much, Lisa. Good luck as you guys out this semester. And Zach, I will hand it back to you.
Well, thanks so much, Lisa and Adam. I'm, of course, a current college student, though I would have loved to have all that advice during my own process, and found it fascinating hearing each of your different perspectives and recommendations for those who will be joining campus life pretty soon. And thank you all for joining this kickoff call of our Spring College Fair. We hope that teens, as well as parents and guardians, will take advantage of the rest of the opportunities to attend sessions and explore the booths and chat features that are available. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll feature sessions from nearly 150 Hillels, representing over 200 colleges and universities. Campus sessions will take place during the hours of 4 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Please favorite the booths of campuses that you're interested in and add their live session to your schedule. Shameless plug for Texas Hillel. We also encourage you to visit the booths of our 17 partner organizations. These booths are offering drop-in sessions from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, both tomorrow and Wednesday, and include gap year programs, service fellowships, college prep and financial aid opportunities, professional development and internships, Jewish Greek life, and Israel travel. And then tonight, you can find all the live sessions in the Hillel International booth. At 6 p.m., we'll continue our time with Adam in conversation with just the Hillel parents. And then from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, there are a series of short gatherings that teens can join and connect with college students and local campus professionals based on specific interests. So session topics include observant Jewish life on campus, which I will be a part of at 6, being a Jew of color on campus at 6:30, disability inclusion on campus at 7, and a general Q&A with members of the Hillel International Student Cabinet, myself included, at 7:30. So these sessions are just for students. And then after, everyone is invited at 8 p.m. Eastern to attend a session on anti-Semitism on campus featuring a panel of Hillel student leaders. Thank you again, Lisa and Adam, and thank you all for joining, and enjoy the rest of the college fair.